Hello, everyone, and welcome to Overtime. First of all, I must apologize. I suspect you're hearing some background noise. It was once described as a jet engine. My hope is it's under control and it's not too bad. If it is, let me know, and I can probably manage at least some of it. What we have here is a shooting at the U.S. Capitol. It occurred actually about 2 hours ago, so we're a little late and behind on that. I do apologize. Now, what we know is this. It looks like somebody rammed the north barricade of the U.S. Capitol. These barricades did not used to exist. They were put up, actually, after the Capitol Hill riot. And somebody rammed the barricade and came out brandishing a knife. At least one officer was stabbed. And 3 shots were fired. The man was hit but alive. The officer was alive, and at least one other officer is injured, although we do not know how. At any rate, all 3 were transported to the hospital. The suspect has since died, and one of the officers has since died. So that's really all we know at this point. Last I heard, Constitution Avenue between 2nd Street Northeast and 1st Street Northwest, and 1st Street between Constitution Avenue Northeast and Independence Avenue Southeast have been closed as a result of what is being described as an ongoing external security threat. We've heard that before, where they say it's an ongoing threat, and what that really means is, yeah, they're still assessing, but it looks like this was a lone individual. We do know also that he was not actually on the radar of any law enforcement agency that we're aware of. It looks like neither the police nor the FBI were following this individual. He did not appear to be on any terrorist watch lists. He did not appear to be followed as a result of prior violence at the Capitol. And at current, they're saying that they do not believe that this was that they do not believe that this was terrorism related. Now, it looks like they have, in fact, been moving many of these barricades back a bit closer to the Capitol building. They do this, of course, when they think that the security is not nearly as big an issue as it could be. They move them a little closer back. People can get closer without being stopped. However, the Republicans have, in fact, been asking that I believe since March 12th, for justification to keep the barricades in place. And ostensibly, this may qualify as justification. I don't know. It's interesting when things like this change. My father was an attorney, and I, on occasion, went to court with him. But I do remember him talking about what he thought was one of the strangest changes he had ever seen in his life, that he didn't think he would ever witness, was when they put metal detectors in courthouses. When he first started practicing law, the idea that anybody would commit violence in a courthouse nobody ever thought that would be a concern. And even the criminals that were being held usually weren't cuffed or shackled. One reason being that it was thought that, coming in shackles makes you look guilty, and so you shouldn't have them shackled, especially before a judge or a jury. But also because they always knew that there was a way they could further appeal, and that any kind of violence would hurt their chances at maybe someday going free. But now, of course, the assumption is violence could break out in any courthouse in this country at any time. There's metal detectors, there's police and security that take things far more seriously than they did back in his day. Oh, God, I'm being trolled by Aries 106. Thanks for that. Yeah, back in the day. I've become one of those people now that says back in the day. So it's a good question as to whether or not we're going to have to live with increased security around all of our government offices, all of our buildings. I think that was one of the things that made the U.S. somewhat unique, was that we had managed to form a government that you didn't really have to worry about necessarily anyone attempting to violently overthrow it or to just shoot our senators and representatives. In fact, they would often speak. I think I do remember the time I felt that change was when Gabby Giffords was speaking in front of a supermarket and was shot in the head, and if I recall, 12 other people killed. And we don't seem to live in that kind of world anymore, with a greater polarization than we've seen. Mowdy, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. So to get back to what we know, it appears as if somebody had rammed one of the barricades. I think it was the northern barricade. One report is that in the process of ramming, he actually struck 2 police officers. At a minimum, it appears he struck one. He got out, stabbed a police officer. 3 shots were fired. Him and the 2 officers were all taken to the hospital. 1 officer and the suspect has since died. So at this point, that's really all we know. Police are saying that they don't think it was terror-related, and the suspect was not on any watch list of any kind, and was not a person of concern either in the previous Capitol Hill violence or as a terrorist of any kind. So we really don't know anything about this. I will tell you, this does smack to me a bit of suicide by cop, which is where somebody wants to die, but for whatever reason feels that they cannot, kill themselves. They won't take a gun to themselves, or they won't hang themselves, or whatever. And so put a police officer in a situation where the police officer absolutely must kill them. It's called death by cop, or suicide by cop, actually, and is unfortunately, obviously, very traumatic for the police officer, and involves the threat of violence, and often violence against police officers, and you can end up. This smacks to me of suicide by cop. There's no evidence of that per se, but this is obviously, if the guy had intended on doing any significant damage, I have to believe he would have brought a gun. If he had intended to make a political statement, I have to believe it'd be on somebody's watch list somewhere. So I'm going to say I think this is probably suicide by cop. So let me see. I do see that there is some conversation in the live chat. So we'll hit the live chat for a minute and then we'll go back to it. But just to recap, at this point, 1 suspect and 1 police officer is dead. Another officer is in the hospital. We don't know his status. At least one of these officers was stabbed. Reportedly, another one may have been struck by a vehicle when a suspect rammed the northern barricade outside the Capitol grounds and exited the car before being shot. So let's see. So we don't know if it was politically motivated. May I be the first to speculate irresponsibly? Or, well, no. One of the reasons I do this show is so that I can be the first to irresponsibly speculate. No, that's a fair point. And yeah, I think well, that is one. So Sinister Porpoise is going to have a stream tonight on what is it, on journalism, and I think that's something that we've talked about here. We've also talked about what are citizen journalists and the what the responsibility of journalists are or are not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly mod Porpoise. And Porpoise, if you don't mind dropping a link to your show tonight at 6:30 on journalism. Porpoise has an extensive background on this, so it's my goal to be there. I've got family, and it's a little. But my intention is very much to be there. I was invited to come on in, so I'm going to do that. So I hope you guys will go watch that. But I think those are some very good questions, and I'll do a rundown in just a minute. It's a reasonably short rundown. It's violence in the violence in the Capitol is of course going to get our attention, which is why we are streaming this. But it appears to be over. It looks like a number of streets are still closed, but so let us, was there any other questions before we could go? Metal detectors at the St. Louis Monument. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, well, it's the change in culture in the U.S., especially, I think, we've talked about this before. There are many ways to, as a political candidate, approach tone and to figure out what it is you want to say and how you want to say it. Obama talked about the politics of division, and I think people sort of saw that as just a tool for him to, like a talking point. But he really did want to change the tone. The so-called politics of division, the idea is if you can find a wedge issue and get people angry about it, these are the most reliable voters you can have. That's the Tea Party. That's how the Tea Party started, and that's how it got into what it's morphed into today, which is really the entire Trumpian movement. But this is all done by the politics of division, and once you have succeeded in it, you will have these people following you around for a very long time, so long as you maintain, usually just a very small number, but nonetheless absolutely maintain that number of orthodox positions. The problem with it is that it's a game of chicken. If the other side engages in it too, then you guys keep increasing the rhetoric. And once you're into office, you kind of have to follow through on these things. And so all of a sudden you lose a lot of your power, because if you don't play to that base, they will turn on you. So that's the politics of division, the idea that by dividing America, you can get more votes and it's easier for you to gain power, and it absolutely works. But it has a lot of drawbacks. It's what we've been seeing, and it's why people are more inclined to commit violence towards political ends than they have in quite some time in this country. And it's why we are more politically divided than any time since the Civil War. I think... yes, so it was 3 shots. So, and I'll cover it down for Xandering, but at any rate, that is what leads to us having to militarize our monuments and having to protect our government officials. And it used to be, I'd spoken with people from other countries, Canada may be the exceptions, as somebody pointed out, but where they said, look, you know, we have to have all our leaders go around with a complete armed guard. Obviously, Obama and our previous presidents all had to have that limo. But for the most part, senators, congressmen could all go to their own constituents and start having conversations. And that kind of changed with Gabby Giffords, and I think is just getting worse. But at any rate, what we know so far is that about 2 hours ago, somebody rammed what I think is the northern barricade, protecting the Capitol grounds. One report was that in striking that barricade, they actually hit 2 officers. I don't think that's true. They may have hit one, but I do not believe that they struck 2 officers. But at any rate, they did strike the barricade. They exited with a knife and did in fact stab 1 officer. Another officer also received wounds, although we don't know from what, either stabbing or being struck. 3 shots were fired at the suspect. The suspect was injured. Everybody involved, this was 2 officers and the suspect, were taken immediately to the hospital. Both the suspect and 1 officer died at the hospital. And we have 1 officer whose condition is unknown. He is alive, but we don't know what the prognosis is. So well, that's what we have now. It looks like, according to the FBI, they had no information on this man. They were not following him. He was not a person of interest in any way. This suggests to me that he was not involved in the Capitol violence that occurred 2 months ago. It means to me that he probably was not a part of any radicalized group, or else he would have been on the FBI's radar in one way or another. This has now already, the police are already saying that this does not appear to be terror related. So the question is what happened. To the best of my ability to discern, based on facts like this, based on the pattern that we're seeing, the fact pattern that we're seeing so far, this is what you tend to see when you see a death by cop. Somebody wants to, or suicide by cop. Somebody wants to end their lives. They start significant violence with the police, knowing that the police will be forced into a position where they have to kill them. It could easily be something else, but I'm suggesting that based on what I'm seeing here, that strikes me as the most likely scenario. But at this rate, at any rate, the police are saying it does not appear to be terror related, and it doesn't appear to be. If there's a political motivation, nobody's got any evidence of that, and he certainly wasn't on anyone's radar. So he also did not have a gun. if he had been intending on killing police officers, it seems to me he was willing to die. You're going to die if you pull out a knife and start challenging police officers, and if you just rammed a vehicle into a barricade. So he had to know he wasn't going to survive this, but he went in with a knife. What that tells me is he wasn't actually looking to kill as many people as possible. He was looking to get attention. And so I think suicide by cop strikes me based on this. And people who do suicide by cop often will use a knife because they're not actually interested in harming police officers, and they'll use whatever level of force is required to get attention, get the attention of the police and get shot, but not so, they're not interested in killing police officers, so they don't think, well, let's get a semi-automatic, whatever. So I think that's what we're looking at right now. So right now, everything is, there still is, the cops fired. The suspect didn't fire a shot. In fact, it looks like he did not even have a firearm. Don't worry, Azandering, I will find a way to make sure that this is another argument for gun control. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're looking at. It does smack to me as a suicide by cop situation. That doesn't mean it was, but that's kind of like when I see a fact pattern like this, that's the first thought that comes to mind. The guy didn't seem to have any other beef, and certainly wasn't on anyone's radar. If he had been interested in causing damage, he'd have had homemade explosives and or guns, and he had none of that. Just a knife, and he rammed the barricade, which is a way of telling officers, hello, I'm here, come get me. So, yeah, that's what I, Okay, so TP Seeker in the live chat is saying that the attacker, I believe that they're talking about in this case, was a 25-year-old male from Indiana. And that's coming from WRAL News. Okay. That's a distance to travel. You can death by cop just about anywhere. All right. Well, let's take a look at it. And I'm actually going to bring up, I actually took down, we've got news. Oh, God, porpoise. Okay, yeah. Dear Lord. All right. And, yeah, I'm not going to repeat that one. Let's see. So they're saying the scene is still being processed. And, yeah, it was the barricade on Constitution Avenue. And they shot him, took him into custody. He died a short time later. And now, yeah, at least one of the officers was stabbed. We don't know how the other officer was injured. And right now, we don't know. Okay, the lockdown on the U.S. Capitol has been lifted. And you know what? I think we can get, we can get footage. I can get footage in here of the vehicle and of everything shortly after, but you're just looking at a car just sitting there and police meandering about. So, I didn't bother to snag it. I mean, we can snag it and put it up in the center window, but honestly, it's just a car sitting there and a whole bunch of police officers hanging out talking about it. It looks like, let me see if I can get any update on this. No, I'll probably do one other rundown, but I think the only possible update that we could have at this point would be A, motive, and B, is the other officer okay? We don't know anything about the other officer. So yeah, staff at Capitol Hill were all on lockdown, but it looks like that lockdown's been lifted. So, and Biden's team said they were aware of the incident, but were not taking it as a sign of any threat against Biden. Yeah, so let's see what we got here. So this is... All right, so this is... Oh, okay, so that's a fair point. So this is the second line of duty death for this department because it was a Capitol Hill officer, so it's the second officer now to die in the line of duty, and the third one who has killed. There was the suicide shortly after the events of the Capitol Hill. Actually, I think it was the same day on the Capitol Hill. So, All right, Noah Green. The man's name was Noah Green, according to, I guess, Peter Williams. It was Noah Green, 25-year-old male, Indiana. And that is the name of the suspect. It was about 100 meters away from the entrance to the building on the Senate side of the Capitol. And 3 shots fired. And it looks like that was, yep, all right. So we'll do one more rundown. I'm not sure that there's, I don't think there's any point in just sort of waiting around for an update. That police officer hopefully is going to be okay. And I think everybody's going to learn his status at some point reasonably soon. But, you know, if we just wait for it, we could be here all night. It's obviously over. The lockdown is either lifted or being lifted incrementally, but it looks like most of the streets are accessible again, and certainly the lockdown on the Capitol has been lifted. So this is about 100 yards away. It was the northern barricade. Yeah, he was taken in critical condition. One was taken, an officer was taken by police car, so they couldn't even wait for the ambulance. They just took him by police car to the hospital. Another was transported by emergency crews. The suspect was taken, and both the suspect and one of the officers have died. So the National Guard, it looks like, was deployed briefly, and there appears to be no signs that this was terrorist-related or anything like that. So we'll do a rundown in about 1 more minute. I'm just going to quickly catch up on the live chat and see if there was anything else. But I think, so what we'll do is we'll do one more rundown. If there's anything I can address in the live chat, let me know. But I think that will just about cover it. It's unfortunate, and but it's you know, there's oh wow, how to say this without sounding dismissive. I mean, unfortunately, there's going to be violence in any society. There's going to be ways of dealing with it. It's unfortunate, most unfortunate that an officer has lost his life. It's unfortunate that the suspect felt that this was the only way to accomplish whatever his goal was. But you can't stop this kind of thing. At least it did not progress any further. I will point out, though, that Republicans have been asking since the 12th to have these barricades removed. So I don't think this is necessarily evidence that this would have escalated if the barricades were down. But this is a thing we're going to have to, I think, as a society, discuss. How much do we want to militarize our civilian areas? And they're getting more and more militarized. And at this point, I think they're going to continue to do so until we find a way to change the tone of our political debate. And I think that's probably in everybody's best interest. But it's a long-term interest, and short-term interests are goosed by getting people riled up and getting them really pissed at the other side. Those are the ones who vote for you. So those are the most reliable voters. Anger is a much better indicator of who's going to vote than love. And people don't necessarily vote for the candidates they love, or they'll try to if they can. But, you know, they have other things. But boy, will they vote if a candidate represents the opposition to something they hate. So that's always going to be the case until we grow up as a society and learn not to feed that. We're going to have to deal with increased violence everywhere in our culture, and schools are going to need metal detectors. They already do in some places, but this is going to get worse, unfortunately. But it is what it is. At least it was managed. So, and now I was hoping that Porpoise. So I was Porpoise is doing. We talked a little bit about journalism and wild speculation, and so Porpoise is going to have a stream on her channel tonight at and I apologize, Titan is not here. If Titan was here, could probably get that link for you, but because I know Porpoise isn't available to drop it. You know what? Let me try to get Porpoise's link. So Porpoise is going to do a stream on journalism, and she's got a lot of experience in that field. We've actually talked to her a few times about how to maybe have her experience help us out. So I'm looking forward to being on that stream, and so I'm going to drop a link to that in a second. Or maybe if Maudy's available, he can. It's just multitasking makes things a little difficult. Let me see if I can find a link to the stream. If everyone could give me 1 second, then I'll do another rundown. we'll cover it, and then if there are no other salient questions, I think we'll wrap it. So, I think Bregwin may have dropped it. Thank you very much, Bregwin. If that's a link to Porpoise's stream tonight, 6:30, I appreciate that. Thank you. A lot on my plate. Perfect. Thank you. So that's going to be her discussion on journalism. I think I don't know what she's going to say, but every discussion I've had with her on journalism, I've very much strongly concurred with what she's had to say about it. So I think that's going to be an interesting stream. I look forward to being on it. So if she hadn't have invited me, now she has to, because I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm on the stream. But all right, so where are we? At approximately 2.5 hours ago, a vehicle slammed into a barricade about 100 yards away from the Senate side of the Capitol building. It's the north barricade, I believe, if I understand this correctly. A suspect, some reports suggest that the suspect struck 2 officers with their vehicle when they did this. At present, I do not believe that is the case. At most, it looks to me like 1 officer was struck, but I'm not sure those details are necessarily relevant, but I think the initial reports are wrong. At a minimum, the suspect got out brandishing a knife and stabbed at least 1 police officer, possibly a second. 3 shots were fired. The suspect was struck. The suspect and 2 police officers were rushed to the hospital. 1 police officer has died, and the suspect has died. We don't know the status of the other police officer at present. It appears there were no other weapons in the vehicle. Police are saying now that they do not believe that this was motivated by terrorism or by the suspect was not on any lists, any watch lists. The suspect was not being watched by the FBI, which also means, among other things, although they've said this, they had not, the suspect had not participated in the riots of the 6th. This barricade actually was not originally there. This barricade was put up after the 6th. And sorry, I'm just looking at news changes. The suspect was not on any watch list, the FBI, not on the FBI radar, so they weren't a part of any radicalized group. They weren't doing any crazy posting on Facebook. They would have been on the FBI watch list if that was the case. And again, no other weapons other than a knife, which is not usually what you carry if you're trying to engage officers in an act of terrorism. So what this looks like to me, and I'm just going to say this is my opinion, my view on this, but you know, having seen a number of incidents, this looks to me like and they do have the name of the suspect. Actually, I just closed that out. They've got the name of the suspect. I think he was 26 years old. It looks like what is commonly called suicide by cop. It's someone who wants to die for some reason or another, feels that they are incapable of doing it by their own hand, and so they find a way to get someone else to do it. The easiest way to do that is to get police officers to shoot and kill you. This is actually not as uncommon as you would think, and YouTube actually just came out with, I think there was a suicide by cop just like a week ago that for some reason was very famous, and it was a man wielding a knife who basically said, "You're going to have to kill me because I'm going to kill you if you don't." And officers did absolutely everything in their power to not shoot the guy, but he was able to force them to do it. And that's a terrible situation to be in, and it's a terrible, you feel bad for the officers. And I have to say, if you're ever so depressed that you really, for whatever reason, I mean, there's alternatives, and there's medical help for people in that state isn't what you would hope it is. It's far better than most people think, especially for crisis like that. But if you've decided you absolutely have to end your life and there's no way around it, traumatizing another human being with a family by making them kill you, because there are interviews with cops that have had to shoot someone and then later learned, and there was a suicide note. I remember this one. There was a suicide note a man had written, and he addressed it to the police officer who would kill him. And he said, "Look, I'm writing this suicide note. I'm going to go out. I'm going to force the police to kill me. And to the police officer that kills me, you had no choice. I'm going to make sure of that. And I'm going to make sure you had no choice. I'm sure you did your job well. Please don't, feel guilty or anything." And it's like the officer, there's an interview with the officer who was just distraught over all of this, and it's just like, what do you say to that? But at any rate, it kind of looks like one of those situations to me. We'll look into this. So, but we do have something else. So, if Bregwin could drop a link to our Discord, that would be spectacular. I would appreciate that. So, right now we do have updated news on the Discord. Hundreds of Indigenous youth are, let's see, from the routes of Line 3 and Dakota Access oil pipelines are rallying in D.C. So, I guess they want to shut down the DAPL. So that's not breaking, but that's certainly something that's happening, and we'll keep an eye out for any other information. Hopefully, the officer is going to be okay. But we'll be discussing this and all sorts of other things. Thank you, Bregwin, in our Discord, and I probably won't be available in there for a little while because I've got a few things I have to take care of, and then we're gonna I'll show up. We just did one show. We'll have another show. That's for later, but. And then I'll be on Porpoises later tonight. So I think it's going to be busy. But come on into our Discord. I do want to add one quick thing about our Discord because people have asked about this. We do have a verification process. You have to have a phone when you just a phone number. We don't have access to that phone number. All of that's done through Discord themselves. But the reason we do that is we have a civil Discord. We have we discuss a lot of topics and some very difficult topics. It's done civilly and with respect on our Discord. One way we ensure that is, we're able to just have that level of verification. So hopefully that's not going to, but people have seen that and have been a little concerned, like, why do I have to give my phone number? It doesn't go to us, but it's the way, if we keep out people who are there to deliberately cause trouble, which happens on occasion, don't know why. But, the phone verification just lets us say, okay, block this person, and they can come back, but they'll have to get another phone number. At any rate, so thank you all for joining us. And, so Bregwin's being a trooper. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. And, let's hope. I was going to say pray, but let's hope that officer's okay. And, we will catch you guys. We have a show on Tuesday. We were going to do Myanmar, but that's up in the air now. But we'll keep you up to date. Thank you all for joining us.